Man, this is such a pleasure. I got one of the all-time greats, Ralph Sampson, University of Virginia. My former teammate, played with the Houston Rockets. Man, how are you? First of all, how are you doing physically? What's going on in your life?
If I follow you all time, great. I'm second. So you with Boston and that dirty jump hook you got is all good. But we'll talk about that later. But no, everything is good here. Everything is you know how they just how we keeping it safe with family and my mom and dad 84 and 82 and just kind of keep them in the house. But they active as all get out. But man, we just been in house in the office just chilling, man, just trying to figure this stuff out.
Man, you seem just like me when you talk about your family because my father is 94 and my mother's 86. And I'm trying to keep them in, and it's just almost impossible.
All right,
I mean,
that's bad.
you go from being like an adult, they go from being adults to almost being like your kids. You're trying to rail them in.
Oh, they say kids twice and adults once. So I mean, they hit it. My mom is so active and she gets so moody sometimes when we won't let her out, and then she'll get the car and she'll just ride around somewhere. My dad will take his truck and he end up like a 7-Eleven somewhere. Like, dude, you can't go down there. And he had lung issues and prostate issues. I mean, this thing will take you out. He said, What do you mean? I said, okay, you don't want to die. And he's like, no, I'm good. So you got to shake him up a little bit. But hey, it's tough, man. You know how it is.
One thing that I look at, you being in the Virginia area and the Black Lives Matter and Charlottesville, I mean, this is right in your back door. I mean, how did all this stuff make you feel?
Well, I mean, here you see, before that thing in Charlotte happened, you could see Confederate flags on the back of people's trucks with their shotguns in the back. I mean, that's just Virginia in the backwoods, right? And then it happened in Charlottesville, you just see it with all the stuff that happened there was kind of crazy. And you just got to be careful these days in this country because something can pop off at any minute. So I think people were trying to gear up for, all the stuff that's happening this year, a couple years ago. And then, just as it goes and downtown Charlottesville, close to North Virginia, Thomas Jefferson, it just exploded everything that is now Black Lives Matter, that we see now. So not surprising to me, but you definitely got to watch what you do.
Stepping back, going into your career as a basketball player, I look at little dots in there. One, Ralph Sampson against Patrick Ewing. That was like do you remember that? Do you remember that game?
I do. I actually remember more about the before and after of the game because before that we played Carolina, Duke. We played all the big boys. We're number one in the country, and then we're going to play Patrick. And that was like a week-long event of Sports Illustrated covers to everything. And then the game is from Charlottesville to Washington, D.C., the Cap Center at that time, right? So, it's a snowstorm, a blizzard. So it's a 2-hour drive. It took us 5 hours to get there the night before the game. So we're like, man, we either go get there, we might not get there, et cetera. So we get there, it's cold, it's snowy. The game was, obviously hyped up, but all over the place. And I didn't know all the particulars that I know now about that game. Like Rush Potts, the senator, was involved in putting that game together. Then I didn't know the magnitude of the money that the school got at that point in time, right? Because you just go play. And so now we older, we know that type of stuff would happen. Then we play, we win, then we go into Japan the next morning.
Wow.
So it was a wild wind trip. We go to Japan. We go through Alaska to Japan. We playing not only Houston, Hakeem Olajuwon, our boy Rodney McCray in Louisville again. We playing all them over there in that sequence. So within a 2 or 3 week period of time, we play everybody that was top 10 in the country. And then, as you may recall, that's when we go to Hawaii and we just get a little blip in the schedule. We play Chaminade and get beat by like eight people, 5 players and 3 refs that were cheating. So you know how that goes. But it was a whirlwind of a trip, and the game against Patrick was one of my favorite games I've ever played in college.
I remember that so well of just, your life has been so storied. And now to be on I guess, a little bit on the quiet side now. How have you dealt with that? Because, you were, this is Ralph Sampson and, you publicly, it's different now. Can you imagine the media hype that would have been following you now compared to when you were playing during that time?
Well, I mean, all that social media stuff. I mean, come on, we wouldn't have been on the phone and texting and tweet. We didn't want anybody to know what we were doing back in that day, right? We didn't, whatever it be. We didn't want to be out in the public like that. But I mean, Sports Illustrated covers were big back then, so that was a piece that if you own Sports Illustrated, that was either the greatest thing ever, or it could kind of stop some people's careers,
Yeah.
hurt whatever. So that was then, and then we didn't have ESPN like we did today. ESPN had just started, the Big East had just started. So I look at some of those things as even guys before we played, how they evolved into the platform, the Juliuses, the Kareems, the Oscars, the Elgin Baylors, all that kind of stuff. Wilts, back then they didn't have it either. If Wilt would have played, Kareem would have played in this era. I mean, it'd been crazy, all the hype they had, right? So it just has evolved, and then as you know, the money has been like stupid. So we would love to go back and play, at least 1 year of these contracts, because that 1 year was our whole freaking career almost. But it's fun to watch the evolution of the NBA. But me, I would love to play right now because for the shoot threes, Bill Fitch wouldn't let us shoot three. We play. You got to get the hole. You got to do this. You got to pass it back out. But the game has evolved, and it's interesting to see how it evolved and see how we can reflect back on it. But I also do think another piece of that is the young guys that play today. I see some of them sometimes they might not know who we are. They might know we talk, we play, but they need to appreciate the guys like yourself, myself. I was talking to Spencer Haywood the other day. I mean, he started this one and done stuff, and the history, whatever. So understand and respect the past like they should, and then I think the NBA is doing a good job with that. But we'll see what happens.
Your life, and we'll go forward, fast forward a little bit, going to your life with the Houston Rockets, #1 pick in the draft, going to Houston, and I played with you. But the thing everybody didn't talk about is you playing the first Twin Towers. You and Elijah one was supposed to be the hype of hype, and playing with you guys, I understood. And everybody said maybe you did not have a good relationship with Ralph, but I knew you did. I mean, you with Hakeem, that you had a great relationship. Talk about that relationship.
Well, it's funny because I played my first year. I played with Elvin Hayes, Caldwell Jones, Major Jones, Alan Level, Tommy Henderson, and Calvin Murphy. That was my first. So I was introduced to the league by those guys early, old seasoned vets, right? Like they do this, do that. So they taught me the game really well from the NBA perspective. And then the next year, they some of them retire and leave, and Bill Fitch, got rid of some of them as well. But Caldwell Jones took me under his wing a little bit, and Elvin Hayes told me kind of what the lay of the land was. So I learned a lot there. And then when the season was over, we still had the #1 pick, and they sit me down and say, okay, how would you want to play with Hakeem Olajuwon? How would that work? Would you want to move the power forward, small forward, etc.? I said, sure, that fits my game. I think we would get along. We played in college against each other, and so we knew that had that relationship a little bit. But I'd seen him around Houston a little bit, and I thought it would be a great fit. So we met, and then the relationship was built at that point in time. Now, Bill Fitch, we wanted to play against each other in practice. He wouldn't let us do that much. He wanted to build that camaraderie between he and I. So we had a unique ability to look at each other and shake our head. Okay, great. Especially like against Kareem. We all Hakeem wanted to play against Kareem all the time. I'll guard him, but you come across and block his shot. I said, dude, you can't block that sky hook. That's impossible to block. Nobody's ever done it. But we did it a few times, but it was a good fit. And even after I got traded, we talked a little bit. He said, man, we wish we'd just played a little bit longer because we were right on that cusp to do something special, but we never had a true point guard. In all those point guard years that we had, we started to point forward with Roddy McRae and Robert Reed and yourself, bring the ball down. So we wish we'd have played longer together, but obviously we didn't do that. But we have a good relationship for sure.
Now, did you say Tom Henderson? Is that who you said?
Yes.
I have a great story about Tom Henderson, and I'll share it with you. I've shared it with some of our listeners before. Back during the 80s, we were, I guess, teams would stay over and not come. You weren't in the league yet. So I lived out in Framingham, maybe about 25 miles outside the city. We just played the Rockets, and I didn't know anybody in my apartment complex. So it was about 2:00 in the morning. We'd beat Houston. I was back in the room. I was asleep. I get a knock on my door at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I was like, who is this? It's like, I said, who is it? Tom. I was like, who? Tom Henderson, the Houston Rockets. I was like,
wow.
What? I opened the door, I see him. He's there with another black guy who lived in my apartment complex. I didn't really know him, and they say, "You have any ammonia?" I'm like, ammonia? I got no damn ammonia. It's 2 a.m. Said, what? They said, well, you got any baking powder? I'm like, damn, they cooking and they cleaning. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. I go back to sleep. I wake up the next day. I see my teammates. I said, man, Tom Henderson came by my apartment at 2 a.m. He wanted some baking powder and some ammonia. He said, you idiot, that was smoking crack. And even today, I just laugh because during that particular time, as you know, drugs. Yeah, I remember you didn't do it. I didn't do it, but a lot of people in the NBA, when you first got in, that was almost norm, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was norm. I mean, my first experience with that in the NBA. Now I'll go back. My mother and father took me obviously on the wing, and they showed me. I had a cousin that played that was really good at basketball. Ended up killing himself many years ago, but was on drugs. And they took me from Harrisonburg, Virginia to Boston, because he moved from Harrisonburg to Boston, and he was a pimp, drug dealer, and he did whatever he needed to do with that. But I saw him in jail. Wow. You could only see his face through a little window like this. And this is the dude I learned basketball from. We slept in the same bed sometimes because he stayed at our house, et cetera, et cetera. So I understood it from that point in time. So I knew from that seeing that I didn't want to go that route. And then my first year in the league, I had some of my lovely teammates come over to my townhouse there, and I remember it like it was yesterday. They came over, they hung out, and they put this bag of white powder on the table. I'm like, what the fuck is that? What is this? Whatever. So they did it. I'm like, okay, great. They said, well, you want to do a line? I said, no, I know it. So I had a license to carry when I went to Houston. So I went downstairs. I had a 357. Someone gave it Magnum. I got it. I said, put it on the desk. I took it out and I put it on the table where they laid the cocaine at. I said, dude, if you ever bring that around me again, it's going to be not a pretty sight. They left. Wow. Right there, because I need to make that statement that I don't do that. So it was prevalent there, obviously, in a lot of ways, especially, I mean, everybody always said Oakland was a pit. You go to Oakland or whatever, you could go there and you might not come back. So I've seen some experience with some other players there, but it was there. You saw it, you understood it. But I tell people the biggest thing that I've started surprising, Caldwell Jones, actually, again, these older guys taught me this type of stuff as well. But, Caldwell Jones would drink a 6-pack right after the game, it'd be beside your locker, right? It'd be right there beside your locker. And he'd like, Dark Horse was the manager, as you remember. It was like, oh, Dark, make sure my 6-pack is right there beside my locker. Make sure it's cold after I get it up. I mean, he drank that before he took a shower, the whole 6-pack. So, they don't have that now in the league, but some things happened back then that was crazy. And drugs was one of those things that you saw, but you didn't want to, you choose to not do it or not do it. And we actually chose not to, obviously.
Well, take us through. I'm going to take you back even a little bit. And one of the great shots that we see in NBA history was the Ralph Sampson shot against the Lakers, where, you knock them out of the playoffs. Ball comes into you from the side. How many seconds were on the clock? Like none? And you just
it's like 9/10, like less than either 1 point something or 9/10. I forget what it was, but our boy Rod McCray said it wasn't a shot, with his pass, because he inbounded the pass from out of bounds. But I tell people all the time, I mean, it was a great shot, obviously, in my career. But we had played Denver in a grueling 7-game series with Alex Lena's, Kiki, and all that crew, right? And 7 games. And the 7th game was at their place. Hakeem had fouled out. I had fouled out. Granville Waiters, Craig Elo, Rodney, Robert Reed, the crew won that game for us down the stretch to go to LA. So that nobody remembers that game to some extent. We get to LA 2 days later, and they roasted us. They just opened the door, Magic and the boys were throwing, how they fly around, throwing lobs. Okay, great. And they thought they was going to win. So we regrouped. We had a meeting the next day, and we said, man, we were tired. You know how it is with the playoffs going in that situation. You're tired, you're frustrated, you try to get it done. And then we won the next game. We won the next game. We go to Houston, win our games there. We're going back to LA. And then we win that game on that shot. And we talked to Magic these days. I said, look, Magic, you won the first game, but we was going to beat you anyway. So if I'd have not made that shot, we're going back to Houston. and we're gonna kick your tail when you go to Houston anyway. You already know that. So he said, yeah, you're probably right. But he always just said, well, you motivated us because the next 2 years we won back to back. I said, okay, you got back to back, so it's good. So it was a good shot, good time in the career. You know how it is. You win in LA, you can, you know the rivalry. You've been there, Boston Lakers. You win on either one of those courts. It's pretty special.
I guess now this is the part where I'm going to apologize to you for something which most fans don't even know about. Just a blip on the radar in Boston when you played against the Celtics during that championship, I think in 1986. Ralph Sampson had an incident with Jerry Seastings where he gave him a right cross. I guess it was a right cross. And Ralph came back to Boston. Houston came into Boston. And in the rafters, there's I guess it was like a mannequin with your jersey on, your number, your name, hanging from the rafters. I have to apologize. And I wasn't even there, but just a bad spot in Boston history that people don't even talk about. Could you talk about a little bit about it and how it affected you?
Well, let's go back to the incident in Houston. I mean, they were up. It was kind of a close-out game. I said, if you're going to win this thing, in my mind, you're going to win it on your spot. You're not going to win it on home court because that's just my mentality going in. So first quarter, I had like 15 points, 8 rebounds, and I was, rolling a little bit. And, as they would come around, you know how the guard, you sit a pick down and your shooting guard come out, whatever. So I sit a pick down and Danny Ainge come out, run around the pick. He hit me in the nuts. I sit a pick down, come back around. Jerry Seastings did the same thing. And God bless it. So DJ, favorite guy, with the play. I mean, they run around. They were just some, guys that would do that to irritate me because I was, then I had Bill Walton guarding me. I was like, come on, Bill, you can't guard me. Just sit your ass down. So that kept happening, and I was so hyped up. And it happened down the court, and then one time it happened, I just got frustrated, and then we went to blows, right? And went to swing. So I look up, my two freaking sisters are on the end of the court, come out the stands, and everybody just went. Then they obviously kicked me out of the game, and then we win that game going back to Boston. So I leave that game, and then all of a sudden there was all this hate letters and calls and whatever it may be. So the team said, basically, we got this out, so we got to have security around you. So I called my two weight coaches at Virginia because they were like John Gamble, weight coach, he's at Buffalo right now, but he was like protecting. He was 300 pounds, bodybuilder, weightlifter, and his partner. So we had security around me. So I was on the floor in Boston. So I knew that we had to do something, but they were on one end of the floor and on one room, and the other one's on one side for my room. So if anything went down, I was right beside those security people. And I didn't pay much attention to it. I was trying to play and come back and win, but I knew going in there was something special about me playing in Boston at that point in time because I had this security around me. So we get to the game, obviously, and the thing you're talking about that, resonates as well because we get in the game and you know how the Garden was. It just hyped up and you're ready to play. We trying to get there before the game, before Larry gets the game because he will always try to be the first one on the court. And Rod Reed, we try to beat him on court just to frustrate him. So we did a little bit of that. But you're right. There was a mannequin or stuffed animal or stuffed human figure, right, with socks and jerseys and 50, and they had an afro wig on it, whatever. And then they had number 50 on it, had Samson back, and they had a noose hanging up over the rail of the Boston Garden. Like they were going to hang me when I got there. So I understand that, at that point I looked up, okay, great. But it only motivated me to play harder. Number one. Number two, after the game, like, okay, we play. And we know they're going to win, right? So Bill Fitch knows that crowd, which he got us off the court, which was the smartest thing to do. Now that I look back, even after I talked to him, and said, I got you off the court because something was going to happen. And so he put the starters in the locker room. We got us off the court with security. And our substitutes played the last 3 or 4 minutes, 3 minutes of the game, right? So, thank him for that at that point in time, because we had a conversation about that. As well, but it was something you look at, and now you look at it again and see the magnitude of it. It's kind of crazy, right? That you have to go in an arena and play, and they allow that to happen in the arena. I don't think they would do that today, or somebody did today. Probably security would take them out. But it's nature of the beast, in Boston, you understand their passion though for their team, but then you do something against their team, then some people might do that. So and as you look at it, and apologize for which you don't have to, but it motivated me to play harder. And then as I look back at the times today, it's like, what's the significance of that, and how can we change people's attitude? Especially in the world we live today with Black Lives Matter, things that happen in Charlottesville, things we see every day. Now you see the difference, even in the election and the votes of people out here that got a misconception of what life's about. To me.
Yeah.
And we all people, we all should love each other. We all should respect each other, but it's not a white or black matter. It's just a life matter. And then people get it all mixed up, and we got a long way to go to get this thing corrected for sure.
I look back at that, and it's so shocking. And I remember it was actually a Celtic official that went up to the top and actually took it down.
Okay.
And what was even more shocking about it to me was not only was it there, but when they took it down, they were taking it down, people started booing the guy who took it down. I was like, this is like a no-brainer. I mean, I understand that times are different. We're talking 30 plus years, but that was, if people don't talk about that, a lot of people won't remember it. You might want to go, as my broadcast partner said, go back and Google it, fans, because you would be like, that happened during our lifetime. And that to me was absolutely like unbelievable. Now I'm gonna move on because it pisses me off when I think about it. Never enjoyed playing as much in a city as I did when I finally got to Houston with you and playing with Elijah Wan. Man, the city of Houston is a special place. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. It's I mean, even now when I go back, I feel like I'm home. I know Harrisonburg is my home, my mom and dad and the family, whatever. I go there, it's like I don't want to leave. Wow. Because it's a big city, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. But just the people, the fans, the restaurants, just the lifestyle for me is pretty cool. I always look back. I was there in January before the stuff broke out with my son. He was living there at the point in time. I said, man, here's where we live, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a special place. It's, NBA loves the city. They love the sports arenas. The fans are crazy, which is great. But you're welcome in that city. Even today when I go, they remember you. So if you're just there, you can just kind of just fade into the city, but also you can be known in the city as well if you want to, because it's so freaking big. Yeah. When I first got to Houston, I can remember, like it was yesterday, I flew from New York, and it was crazy. I was on one Learjet as the number one pick. Roddy McRae was on the other Learjet. We were side by side flying to Houston, going to Houston to the summit to be introduced to the fans, right? We get there, 18,000 people in the arena. Just crazy. So we get that, and it's a funny story. We get there, and me and Rodney stand in the summit area in the hotel there, and we look at okay, we got to sign a contract, but let's go out tonight. So we're going to celebrate. So we go out to a local restaurant, a local bar, and the first person we see is Alan Level. We didn't know who he was. We didn't know who he was. So we get there, we go, we eat, we hang out, we go to the bar area. So, Caldwell, all the guys there, we see Alan Level smoking cigarettes. We're like, me and Roddy what the hell we done got ourselves into? When we come in here, our point guard, and Alan says, you come there, I'm the man in Houston. So anything you need, I'm the man. We're like, okay, great. We see him in the corner smoking cigarettes. We look at you like, what the hell? We got a point guard smoking cigarettes. And it was like June. So, so we go back and even talk to Alan about that today. But it was a fun city. It's a special place, obviously being drafted there, number one. And I go back today and say, I would love to live there again. I'm thinking about getting a condo or something like that. It might not be a house because I got to go back and forth with my parents in Virginia. But as you know, it's a special place.
I'll ask you kind of a different question, take you a different way. And I always ask people this question. Ralph Sampson, give me your Mount Rushmore of sports. And it doesn't have to be all 5 basketball players, but give me what would be your Mount Rushmore of sports.
How many picks I get? How many people I get?
Mount Rushmore only has 4.
That's what I'm saying. I got to maybe get 5. So
you can't have 5. There's only one Mount Rushmore.
I got to have a point guard. So Rushmore would be.
But you don't have to do it with basketball. It can
I get it. So my number one, Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
Just the mere fact of all the stuff he went through, and I got to know him a little bit better. He lived in Phoenix when I was coaching there. But over the years, and I would go to Louisville, but number one, Muhammad Ali would be probably my number one that needs to be on Mount Rushmore from that standpoint. And I think he's a very, very special guy in the world of just sports and humanity, so forth and so on. I would then go, from away from the sports world, and Barack Obama, would be somebody I'll put up there, just because of the first ever African American to be the president. But I think we'll see as this continues to go on how much he is worth in this world. So I got to meet him a couple of times here and there, but I think he's very special as well. And if I go back to a basketball player, I always enjoyed Wilt Chamberlain. I got to know him as well, and it's a funny story. So I would see Wilt in LA go play. He hated Kareem. I mean, he just literally hated Kareem with a passion. He would say, "Big fella, I want you to, F him up a little bit." Like, okay, so and then you would see him, down at Gladstones and on the beach playing volleyball. He could high jump 7 foot, but he'd be at Gladstones in his convertible Rolls Royce with a bikini bathing suit on. I mean, it's 300 pounds, 7'2".
Yeah.
This crazy guy. And then I would go over to the Coliseum. You go to football games or you go to track meets, whatever. You look up in the Coliseum, and the first time I met him, he'd be up in the top of the Coliseum sunbathing. So just to understand his mentality and able to conversate with him at that level, understand his ability, his mindset, for me was very going into the league, because he was one of the baddest boys out there, right? He scored 50 points, get 20 rebounds, had 50 rebound games, and was very dominant and very athletic. So I tell people today, would you take Shaquille O'Neal or would you take Wilt Chamberlain? Wow. Now, that's the debate right there that you have statistically. I mean, I love Shaquille for what he can do in the game, but Wilt was the first big dominant big man of that stature, right? So anyway, I would put Wilt up there as well. And then, just from a lifestyle standpoint, you would just take those 3 picks, and you can put anybody else that you want. You can put from a Michael to LeBron. You put anybody up there from that standpoint.
Well, it's your Mount Rushmore. I got my builders ready to go, so we got to have one more person.
I'm gonna get you one more. I'll get you one. So I built a relationship, and this is all relationship driven, with Elgin Baylor.
Wow.
So I mean, one of the first could do all the stuff with the ball and his history. Actually lived in Virginia for a little bit when he was young, born and raised, whatever. But to understand Elgin, you can read his book. But I've been to his house, his wife. He knew Obama. He got a little dementia going on right now, so I hope he's safe and sound. But Elgin's a special dude. So for me, he would be one of the first iconic guys that's in that 6'8", 6'7", whatever model of a Michael, LeBron, and that crew, Julius. But Elgin Baylor was a bad boy, so he'd be my 4th.
You bring up a name that all basketball people want to know about. Your critique right now on LeBron James.
I knew LeBron. I had an AAU team when he was coming out in high school. And I wanted to do a regional team, and he was one of the people on the team. And once we got there, we were loaded. And I met his mom. I knew his story, etc. And we had an all-star AAU team. We got into it for like 1 month, and they made this new rule in the AAU that you couldn't have a player that was not within 100-mile radius of your location. So we never could play. We never could have to disband the team. So I watched him over the years, understand that, and see the evolution of LeBron. You can't really say who's the best ever if you awarding championships, right? So the best ever championship is Bill Russell. And our relationship with him. And who do you think? What to me the greatest ever is Bill, because if you equating championships, the greatest athlete ever is going to be LeBron, because of you know how rigorous this thing is. Even today, Mac, you can understand. They get food in the arena. They got chefs. They fly on private plane. We could play for another 5-6 years. We had all that. I was the first guy in the league to bring weights into a locker room.
Wow.
In Houston, we had one locker room over. We had the weight room there.
Yeah.
Caldwell Jones majored. I'm like, well, you listen weights for? That's gonna throw your shot off. I'm like, no, man, I've been lifting weights. I had to, build a little bit because I was, soaking wet, 185 pounds. But LeBron's body, mindset, ability to change the game and stay that competitive at now 17, 18 years in the league is amazing to watch. And I want him to win more championships. I mean, just think 10 finals in a number of years. That's 120 some games plus with preseason. That body's still going like it is. He's probably one of the most amazing athletes of all time, not only in just basketball, maybe in all sports.
You've looked at this year has taken away some of the iconic people, John Thompson. But then the guy I got a chance to meet and talk to in the last years or so was Kobe Bryant. A little bit about Kobe, because where were you when you heard the news?
Right.
And just like everybody, you're just in shock and can't believe it. It's like, don't tell me that. That can't be true.
Yeah, I mean, it's certain moments in your life, you will always know where you were when something happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Kobe is one of them. I was in a Staples office supply store in Newport News, Virginia, getting some ink for my printer. I didn't know what I was doing. And then I walk in and one of the managers come and said, "You hear about Kobe? He died." I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? He died. He died." I'm like, "Whatever, you bullshitting me." So I get it. I go right back home and I look on the news, and all the news is all over the place with, you look at your phone, all in place with this helicopter, Kobe man died, what's happening. Then you start hearing stories about who may have been on a helicopter. Nancy Lee was a friend of mine. She was supposed to be there with him going on that helicopter. So all the stories start to come out and you're like, wow. And then you start to think about it, like helicopter, flying. I mean, the tragic, his daughter in his arms and other people in there with their kid on as well. And you're going to crash. And then what do you do? So every time I think about it, it's just heart-wrenching. I understand the passing, I get that. But the tragic way it happened with the daughter and the people on it, it just gets under my skin. It gets emotional, but it's very sad. And then, you're right. This year's been crazy, from Kobe to John Thompson. I remember I was out with John Thompson as well. Me and John had built a relationship over the years. I mean, he recruited me in college to go to Georgetown. I remember when he came to our parents' house and sit in my mom's chair, Big John Thompson sitting in the chair. My mom thought he was going to break the chair because he was so tall and big, whatever. But you remember those incidents, and John Lewis. It's been a crazy 2020, and it started with Kobe. And if that was any idea what this year was going to be like, it is what it is right at this point in time. But very sad, man. And that legacy will last forever. His wife, kids. I feel for him for sure.
You had to go through one of the most crazy, I guess, recruiting battles of all time when you came out. Because you're talking about John Thompson. I know Dean Smith had to come get you, wanted to see you. How did you make that final pick to go to Virginia instead? Obviously, you're home, but still, just all the places that you had. How many scholarships you think you offered? You think you had? That'd be the first thing.
Well, I had a great high school coach, and he's still living 80 years old today. And we set up these rules, so Ralph's rules, and we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea what we were doing, but he researched it. He had an idea. So we would get a letter from a school. He would make sure I got all the letters, so all the schools. And I mean, probably 3,000-4,000 schools out there at that point in time sent letters. And some of them you're not going to go to, et cetera, but you figure it out, and you try to understand it. And then I had one of my best friends, B.J. Johnson, that played at East Tennessee State from my hometown, two doors up, passed away in a tragic bike wreck about a month and a half ago in Houston at that. But I had a tribute show with him on our radio show. And I had Coach Sonny Smith that coached Barkley and Chuck Person, Jim Hallahan, and these type of people on Mac McCarthy on the show, tributing him. And we looked back at it, and they talked about the historical stuff that he did in Houston, but also over the career time. But anyway, Tony Smith mentioned, said, well, B.J. Johnson took you down to East Tennessee State. Now, I know I wasn't going to go to East Tennessee State, but a friend of mine, he drives me down. Let's go. I'm going to school. Let's drive you down, and let's just hang out. Okay, great. Drive me down, hang out. Then, I need to work out. I work out. So, let's go work out. Let's go play. So we go, we play. And then the AD's up in the stands watching and say, Coach, who's that kid down there playing? Oh, it's Ralph Sampson, friend of BJ Johnson. Well, you know it's an NCAA violation. That AD turned his own school in.
Oh my goodness.
Turned his
What?
own school in. I didn't know their story to read. Turned his own school in. So they got in trouble for that from that standpoint. So recruiting was crazy. At that point in time, you had 6 visits. You could take 6 visits. I only took 4. They'd be like, go to UCLA, go to Hawaii. Go. I said, no, I don't want to go that far. I don't want to travel that far. So my 4 visits were Kentucky, Joe B. Hall, Leonard Hamilton. If I'd have gone there, we'd have had 7 high school All-Americans on the team. Myself, Sam Boyd, Derek Minifield, Dirk Horde. I mean, we would have had 7. Next was Virginia Tech. They had Tick Price and Wayne Solomon and Mike Robinson. They had really good nucleus. Tick Price, but they were all seniors, and they were in the Metro Conference. The only good team was Louisville. The Metro Conference, Virginia Tech was crazy. Go to North Carolina, visit there. I like North Carolina a lot. Al Wood was my host, right? So Al Wood takes me on campus, and okay, Al, let's hang out. And then he said, well, meet me at Carmichael. Okay, so I get on campus. I get an hour and a half later, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm at on campus. I get lost. And D. Smith to this day blames Al Wood for me not going to North Carolina, because I'd have played with that crew with me and James Worthy, and the crew would have been in the same class. I mean, it would have been really good. And then Virginia, it was an hour from my house, and they had a few good players, Jeff Lampley, Raker, those guys are well from Kentucky, but they never could get over the hump. And even today, I realized the significance of going to Virginia, and I'll tell you why. So it was hours from my mom and dad's house. It was in the ACC, and I could get a good education. But Virginia, only, if you ever look at it, only had ever 2 African Americans on the team.
Wow.
And the reason why is that nobody else wanted to room with them on the road. I didn't know that until over the years, right? Coach Holland. So they had 2. They had Mike Owens, Bobby Stokes, and Garland Jefferson. And Garland never played that much, but Mike and Bobby room, and Garland would stay home sometimes. He was going to road sometimes, but he had a couple guys in room with. But we changed the culture at UVA. We brought in 6 African Americans my freshman year.
Wow.
So it changed the whole dynamic of UVA sports from a basketball perspective. And I didn't realize that till years later that I got out of school there. Not that Coach Holland and the crew was racist, but no one ever wanted to go there because of the stigma of Virginia, the basketball. And he tried to change it up in 1976. They won an ACC title, and it was 2 African Americans on that team: Bobby Stokes and Mike Owens, Wally Walker and the crew, whatever. But even today, and I tell you, because that whatever, I look back at it. One of the reasons I actually now live in Charlottesville is come back is because of the stuff that's racially divided in Charlottesville with the school, and also the sports piece. There was something on walked on the lovely Thomas Jefferson lawn a couple weeks ago, and it's in the news that these young ladies are standing up for Black Lives Matter, and they put a piece of paper on their dorm room door. Now, this is where Jefferson lived, and Edgar Allan Poe and all these big people lived back in the day. But they didn't deface the university. They just put a piece of paper and said FUVA, and it said racism and all this kind of stuff. So all the university is up in arms, right? Because of that, they like, oh, we need to get this girl to take it down. All the big money people like, President, you need to go get that down, whatever. So they said that, and guess what? Like 4 or 5 people did it on the same door as well. So going back and understanding where we were, where we've been, what I've been through there now, and understanding it, it's kind of crazy to watch it and see it evolve. And so the significance of UVA to me right now is even more meaningful that I went there, and now is what I'm going to do to help change the culture there in some respect, especially in Charlottesville with R.E. Lee. My favorite, my arch rival school was R.E. Lee High School. So now it's Stanton High School because everybody's changed it. They took down the statue of the R.E. Lee, whatever. So that statue didn't bother me. It's what the statue meant that may bother me, right? You can leave the statue up all you want. Ain't nothing gonna happen to that statue but some pigeon shit and bird shit on it. So it's all good. And so, they'll make a difference that way. But you do things for a reason. You know what I'm talking about. You're in Boston doing what you do, and you got this great podcast and show. Significant. That is powerful when we look back at it. Now we have these platforms that we didn't have when we played, right? Yeah. That we could stand up for. Now we can do this and say what we want, feel what we want, and nobody's going to say, oh, why you say that? Because it's now here. It's real. So Virginia was my best choice for a lot of different reasons.
As you talk about that, you could almost write a book about the incidents, not just your life, but the recruiting incidents must have been unbelievable. Here I went to UNC Charlotte. I grew my senior year. I grew between my junior year and my senior year. I got cut as a junior and grew 5 inches and was in Kinston, North Carolina, and went to Charlotte. So I didn't have many moves around me. So when I look at a guy like you with the national notoriety and all the things that happen, and I mean, obviously now you think about it, would you look back on it? Would you even come to the NBA if they had the same rule that they have now, coming directly into the pros instead of going to college?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think about it often now because of the situation, but I come out.
Ralph, this money, the money that, and I don't get pissed off.
I do.
I'm congratulated when I think about. When I think about some of these guys making, I think about James Harden turning down $50 million a year. I'm just, you get pissed at your parents because, damn, I shouldn't have been born now. This is stupid ass money. It's not like, okay, like when we played, I remember the thing that Moses Malone, and you loved him to death, but I remember when I was in the league and it was crazy because Houston came in and gave Moses Malone $1 million a year and it was cash. Everybody in the league went crazy. They're like, oh my, because it was funny money back in the league. When I say funny money, your salary might be $600,000, but they weren't giving you. There was a thing called deferred your money, and they would give it to you later without interest. So it was absolutely crazy. But to see the money now, the Steph Currys and these guys of the world, it doesn't piss me off, but it's like, damn, I just can't even believe it.
Well, think about this. I mean, if I were to come out today, 3-time college player of the year, et cetera, right? $500 million. Yeah. I mean, so, but obviously, but think about this as well. In high school, I could have came out that year, but I was 195 pounds soaking wet. I wasn't ready, right? And I saw the Moses and Daryl Dawkins. I could have jumped ship at that point in time. We win the NIT my first year in college against Minnesota and Kevin McHale and Randy Brewer and the crew.
Wow.
Your guy out there, Red Auerbach, came to our parents' house. I have pictures of whatever with $1 million in a briefcase.
Dude, wait a minute. Before you go on with that story, let me tell you how good this story was. You talk about this $1 million you were getting, and Red Auerbach came there to your house. He wanted me to come with him to your house and to give you the money. I'm like, I'm not going to that fucker's house giving him no money. You ain't giving me that much money. So I was going to get to that part of the story. So that's really
wow. I didn't know that, but so the story. It's kind of crazy, right? So we definitely have to write that book. Now we
were drafting. What draft we were? Was that when we took Larry, or we have the number?
No, they took Kevin McHale.
Kevin McHale, and they talked to us. They wanted me and Larry to go down to Virginia and tell you to come out that year so we could take you. And I was like, really? You really want that? And so
maybe I would have came if you came out and came out. So we'll blame you. But
tell us a little bit about that story, because that's interesting.
So they came down. He and I think it was Mr. Fitzgerald that owned the team, I think, at that point in time, or something like that. And they knocked on the door. We have a picture of him going in the door and all that kind of stuff. We had the briefcase. And he said, basically, you come play for the mighty Boston Celtics and open the briefcase. Here's $1 million. You'll never be able to get this again in life if you don't come out to go to school now. Come out and play with us now.
Wow.
So I was only in my freshman year, and I was still developing my body with development. I said, and I think Chief was there. Robert was probably there already.
Yeah.
So I'm like, my mom, I said, my mom, are you financially, we okay? I mean, $1 million on a dining room table. Like, okay, great. My mom said, we worked this far and we'll continue to work no matter what. So it's your decision. So I felt I wasn't quite really, my body wasn't really ready for the NBA. So what it did was motivate me. So between my freshman and sophomore year in UVA, I gained like 18, 19 pounds, and I was, strong as an ox. So I went back to work. So if I can go get that money and support my family, I'm good. So that was the first one. So think about Kevin wouldn't have gone to the Celtics. Yeah. The number one of their pick. The next year, I had the chance to come out again, and Worthy wouldn't have gone to the Lakers. The next year, Detroit, Isaiah wouldn't have gone to Detroit. So we had known each other from all the high school pickup games and all-star games. And James, you coming out? Ralph, you coming out? They're like, are you coming? I said, I don't know I'm coming out now. Because I waited till the last minute. But it was coin flip. So Lakers or Indiana. Hell, I don't want to go to Indiana. I'd rather go to Lakers, but there was no guarantee. If I know what I know now, I'd have came on after my second year. Worthy wouldn't have gone to the Lakers. I'd have gone to the Lakers because the politics in the league, I tell people, how did Patrick Ewing go to New York? Come on. That's not supposed to be, right? But he goes because it fit the league. So where would I fit the league? And at that point in time, in the markets that we know, not saying that it sticks, but guess what? Come on, let's be real. I'd have came out then and Worthy wouldn't have gone there. It'd been me and Kareem, and it'd been a whole different ball playing with Magic. It'd have been great. And I played an all-star game with Magic and won MVP. And I said, damn, I wish I'd have gone that way. He said, I wish you'd come out too. But it's Houston fit. Things happen for a reason. But I had that chance to come out every year, and from a freshman, which I wasn't ready, to Boston with Red Auerbach. That's a great story. To the Lakers or Indiana or to Detroit and Cleveland or somebody like Detroit or Cleveland. I don't want to go there. So let me go back and get this degree and see if I can win a national title at that point in time. That was my mindset. I was on schedule to graduate, and then I had a great nucleus of guys around me that I could play with to potentially win a national title. So that's one of the reasons I went back.
There's things about it, and we're almost through, but there are things about college that I'm like you that I loved. I mean, I didn't because you're a big man on campus, you're a national whatever. Yep. It was, I guess, it was your oyster. It was everything that you would want. You were able. What I loved about your situation, you were able to dictate and pick and choose what you wanted to do for your family, and you didn't get the sellout or the $1 million that Red Auerbach bought you and listen to this stuff. But that must have been tough for a young man to see $1 million cash on the table and you going.
It's something you'll never forget. I mean, like, okay, it's $1 million, but I mean, I'll equate that, but it's something you like, okay, wow. And then I wanted to touch it because you know how you put the $100 on the first stack. Maybe it was some fake paper underneath of it. I don't know, but like, okay, can I just touch it? Whatever, but I didn't. But yeah, I remember it for the rest of my life. Obviously, my parents will remember it as well. But it was something to see, because as you know, you said earlier, $1 million back then was huge, compared to whatever. But you look at the evolution of it now. I mean, like I said, James Harden, 50 million. So 50 of those briefcases on one table. Ooh. I mean, the magnitude of it. So where is all that money coming from? So I've done some things and trying to actually had a group to purchase a couple of teams, try to get that done as well. And it's a funny story. Minnesota Timberwolves came up, and I tried to put a group together to do that. And the guys I had, the group that then came back after me and said, "Well, we want you to participate, and but we don't want you to be involved in the team as far as in the front office. But we just want you to have an equity percentage and be the minority and come to the games and do this."
Whoa!
I'm like, dude, come on. I mean, I think I know the game a little bit. I have a passion for it, but you don't want me to educate these young guys coming in to understand the game and what it's all about. So it's it's still some of that stuff there in this league. So I like where I'm at right now to be in a position to be able to do that. I think UV helped me do that education-wise and also historical-wise. And all stuff you're talking about, we're talking about now, is that how we can have an impact on our society, especially our young guys, because Harden them don't know. I mean, they can't compute $50 million.
Yeah.
So I got 50, but I'm paying how much in taxes? And I'm paying in every state. There's a state tax. I mean, you know how we got. I'm still getting letters.
Except in Houston.
Except in Houston.
Except in Texas. No state.
Well, that was a huge deal for me when I went from Houston to Golden State. I'm like, shit. Taxes when California was crazy, but they don't understand that at the magnitude of it. With players today, and then understand it. I mean, they make a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but if they can keep all that, it'd be great. I mean, that's why. As you know, some people fall on hard times when in this league after you make that money, and then you mentioned life after basketball. It's a hard fall to to normal life, as we all know. But it was fun to watch these guys make that money as well and see it. I mean, you know what, hundreds of millions of dollars for one player. I mean, they should reach back and say, hey, give us a couple $100,000, just for paving the way for them. They should pay us for
that. The last question I'll ask you is very much like we had, and I talk about the different the lifestyle, the different everything you came in the league. When you start to talk about, I remember of them telling me, no, don't lift weights. We don't want you stronger. Now you look at the weightlifting, look at the arenas, look at the planes. They're independently. I played in the championship game in 1981 in Houston, where I was the finals MVP. We're flying back. We can't even fly straight back to Boston. We have to fly on a plane, Delta Airlines, through Atlanta to to come back to Boston. Just the difference in how this league is. And it just seems like it's just such a different era, a different life than it was when you and I played. We had the experience. We thought we were making a ton of money. But we look at it going, we might as well play at the circus because it wasn't nothing but peanuts.
Hey, with no shells on them. I mean, you had to the shell and give it up. But I mean, you understand what you're saying. So, and it was like you 3 games in a row, 3 nights. You didn't play 2 nights. I mean, there wasn't no I gotta rest and and I gotta take a day off and all that. That was unheard of, right? Workload. I mean, I had cuts over my eyes one time, and Bill Fitch said, we could just put some goggles on you, stitches, cuts, messed up hand and fingers. You played no matter what. And now we got workload and can't play. And now we got massages, masseuse, get your nails done, get your feet done, chefs in arenas, private planes that can take you to and from one stop, making hundreds of millions of dollars. I tell you, I mean, can you imagine the team Houston Rockets with $2.2 billion? I mean, come on. And Les Alexander, I mean, Charlie Thomas bought it for $85 million. I mean, when it was, so the evolution of it, and then Les bought it, and then he's making all that money. And then we don't get any of that, right? We don't participate in that money. But I think they owe us. I think they owe us some payback. But it's great.
You're such fun in talking to you because I'm making such a connection, and I keep saying the last one, but this is the last one.
It's all right. We can keep.
Can you believe that the Summit is now a church where you used to play? That's the last one. I'll let you talk about that with Joel Osteen, and it's like I can't believe that the Summit is now where we play basketball is now a church.
I went back there for Elizabeth Loan's funeral, and it was in the Summit. And I walk in and you walk into the arena and you can tell it's where we played, but it's a church. I'm like, come on, all the stuff that happened in that building, that's a church. But you go, I can't even find the locker room anymore because all that stuff is different. And I'm like, okay, great. I tried to find so they changed it up. Like, I mean, that wasn't a bad arena though. I mean, it was a good arena. Yeah, good. I mean, compared, they had a couple of sky boxes and all that kind of stuff. Well, but it wasn't a bad arena compared to the Toyota Center there. I understand the magnitude of it, but no, I can't believe it's the church. I mean, I guess they repurposed it, but I mean, it's a special place for us because we played there.
Yeah.
My first NBA games were there, whatever. It's like, why you make this a church? Why can't you just leave it a basketball arena? Why it got to be a church? But I mean, Joel Osteen has done an amazing job down there as well. So I commend him what he does. I met him a couple of times, but it's definitely different to go see. Definitely different for me. For sure.
Thank you very much for being on my podcast. It was a pleasure. And one day, if you ever need me to be on your show or anything, just give me a call because it was.
Yeah, we'll hook it up. We'll get out there and make it happen.
This was fun. This was history. And I even learned that, you even learned that I was supposed to be there to bring you $1 million.
I think, you should have came. I would have played with you earlier on. It's been fun.
All right, dude, take it easy.
All right, man. Y'all be good. Appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
All right.